Okay, so this is my skill 3 video, and so the first angle I chose was a 150-degree angle with a 30-degree reference angle, and that is going to be in the second quadrant. Obviously, it had to be have a reference angle of 30 degrees, as it said in the instructions, although it was in radians, so I converted all of these to degrees just because I thought it would be easier for me. So I have my 30-degree reference angle in the second quadrant. So I found the sine of this triangle by looking at this graph, if you want, and you see that it's in the second quadrant, and because it's in the second quadrant and sine is opposite over hypotenuse, you know that opposite is going to be this y value, and the hypotenuse is 1. So it would be your y value over 1, your positive y value over 1, which is just positive y because it's over 1, therefore it's the same. And if you look at these calculations, obviously we know how a 30, 60, 90 triangle works. So if the hypotenuse is 1, then this opposite side is going to be it's going to be 1/2 because this is a 30-degree angle. So we know that the sine of that is going to be positive 1/2. Now, the next part asked for cosine, I believe. Yeah, exactly. So cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. So we know our cosine is going to be negative because it's that change in x, which is past, it's like left of the x-axis. So we know it's going to be, or left of the y-axis, my mistake. So we know that it's going to be a negative x value. So if it's a negative x value, and we know that it is root 3 over 2, then over 1, then our final cosine would be negative root 3 over 2. As for the next one, that is a 300-degree angle with a 60-degree reference angle. So that's going to be in the fourth quadrant. That one is right here, this one. And it is a 60-degree angle. So again, we know it's a 30, 60, 90-degree angle. I'm sorry, the quality is kind of bad, but I will do my best to explain. So for the sine, again, it's going to have a hypotenuse of 1 and the same values basically for the legs, except in different positions, and some will be negative and some will be positive. So for this one, we can see that the x value is going to be positive and the y value is going to be negative, but this y value is going to determine the sine, and since the y value is across from the 60 degrees, it's root 3 over 2, and negative root 3 over 2 over 1 is still negative root 3 over 2, so we know that our sine is negative root 3 over 2, and our tangent for this one would be opposite over adjacent. So for that, we would divide negative root 3 over 2 over 1/2, which is the same as multiplying negative root 3 over 2 times 2, which is negative 2 root 3 over 2, which is negative root 3, basically. So that would be our tangent. Now for our next value, it's going to be a 45, 45, 90 triangle, 225-degree angle, 45-degree reference angle. So we know that it's going to be in the third quadrant. Hypotenuse is still 1, but here our x value and our y value is going to be negative. So we know that for sine, we are going to have our change in y over 1, which is still our change in y. So both of the side lengths are going to be the same. Those are root 2 over 2, but they're going to be negative root 2 over 2. So the sine would be negative root 2 over 2, whereas the tangent would be opposite over adjacent, and you're dividing the same negative value by itself, and that will always get you a value of 1. So you know that your tangent here is going to be 1. And then the final part was the quadrantal angle. I chose 360 degrees, or 2 pi, and we've determined now that cosine is determined by x and sine is determined by y. So if we have 360 degrees, we know that in our unit circle, the coordinate is going to be 1, 0. So like I said in here, our coordinates are 1, 0. So if our cosine determines x and sine determines y, we can create the coordinate points cosine sine, as you can see right here. So therefore we can assume that our sine is 1 and our cosine is 0. Therefore our sine, oh, I am so sorry. This should be cosine sine. So obviously because cosine determines x and sine determines y, so our sine would be 0, our cosine would be 1, my mistake. And of course we know obviously sine is 0, but tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent, which is sine over cosine, 0 over 1, which is 0. So our tangent would also be 0 here. And that's how you find the sine and cosine and tangent of all of these different triangles.